This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Ja, und damit herzlich willkommen zu The Stanley Parable. Das Ding liegt schon eine ganze Zeit auf meinem Pile of Shame und ich dachte, jetzt ist mal die Zeit gekommen, es anzufangen. Mache ich denn das, was die Stimme mir gesagt hat? Ich meine, gehört zu haben, dass es so ein Mindfuck-Game ist. Aber offensichtlich habe ich keine Tasten zu drücken. Die Stifte sind schön angespitzt, sehr gut. Formulare, alles, naja, mehr oder weniger einsortiert. Was steht da? Mondays? Na, wie auch immer. Wir verlassen unser kleines Büro. Kollege? Kollege 429.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Ups, jetzt habe ich den einfach runtergefahren. Claudia, ich habe deinen Rechner, ich habe vergessen zu speichern. Der ist einfach ausgegangen. Oh, wow, es gibt nicht mal einen draußen. Ist ja wie bei der Umbrella Corporation hier. Ah, hier gibt es einen draußen. Ah. Schön. Die Natur. Der Wind in den Haaren. Die Pollen in der Nase und die Allergie triggert. So, den mache ich auch aus. Wir müssen Strom sparen, Leute. Wenn ihr hier schon nicht arbeitet, ne? Dann fahrt doch bitte wenigstens eure Rechner runter. Username Access. Nein. Ich würde ja gerne warten, ob der Minutenzeiger jetzt wirklich gleich einen Schritt nach vorne macht. Aha. Alles nur eine große Lüge. Die Türen gehen alle nicht auf. Oh, noch mehr Natur. Ist das schön. Ah ja, sehr schön. Sehr, sehr schön. Völlig normales Büro.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Nö. Aus
This
Prinzip.
was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Ja, genau, darum geht's. Oh, da ist noch ein Rechner an. Hallo? 447, Ihr Rechner ist an. Wie schlimm ist das? Sieht ein bisschen so aus wie der Raum von der anderen Seite. Also, wo wir eben dran vorbeigekommen sind. Ah, ist das die Mitarbeiter-Lounge?
Yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
Ja, ist wirklich, es ist ein architektonisches Meisterwerk, dieser Raum. Diese Formen, diese Farbe.
Yes, really, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really worth it.
Geil. Gefällt mir jetzt schon.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Oh, jetzt ist der Minutenzeiger hier aber... Der hat sich gerade... Ja, der bewegt sich ein kleines bisschen. Okay, das ist natürlich cool. Das Gemälde haben wir schon gesehen. Scheiße, ich habe nicht zugehört. Was? Die Tür zu unserer Linken.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door and got back on track.
Ich mach mal gerade ganz kurz einmal... Nee. Einmal ganz kurz... Ein bisschen leiser. So, ich glaube nämlich, dass das... Also sollte jetzt für euch eigentlich wenig Unterschied machen. Also ein bisschen natürlich, aber... nicht allzu viel. So, wir müssen hier runter. Da wäre aber auch noch eine Tür. Nur mal kurz um die Ecke schielen. Ich will gar nicht durch. Oh, der ist aber sehr verlockend. Upsi.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Da habe ich wohl automatisch den richtigen Weg genommen. Do not alter without consulting Whiteboard Manager. Hier gibt es einen Whiteboard Manager. RIP. Soll das Franz heißen oder steht da Franz? Okay. Financial Panic Meeting. Ja, das brauche ich. Office Efficiency. Legal. Marketing Mondays. Alles klar. Okay. Ist ja schon... Was haben wir hier? Tomorrow. Complete today's unfinished agenda items. Write next day's agenda. Refleet? Get Chris out. Who moved my desk? Ja, das scheinen mir alles sehr wichtige Meetings zu sein, die hier machen. The Boss Appreciation Minute, alles klar. Synergize Core Value Expenditures. Okay. Graphs about things and money. Profits. Okay. Wir sind ein sehr kapital... Oh, hier ist... Oh, geh nach außen aus. Scheiße, da kann ich jetzt nicht mehr nachlesen, ne? Da stand irgendwas über das Broom Closet. Da gehe ich mal rein.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Nee, irgendwas ist hier. Da... Ich kann nicht springen.
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow. Just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
Doch.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
Ja, gut, okay, hast gewonnen. Aber wir werden uns wiedersehen. Broom Closet. Das war nicht das letzte Mal.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Ich kann gar nicht... Ja, weißt du, nach oben finde ich schon besser. Irgendwie, weiß nicht, Treppenhäuser haben was Gruseliges. Ich weiß auch nicht. Oh. Hier sieht es aber ganz anders aus. Sicher, dass ich noch im gleichen Haus bin? Die Steuerung ist ein bisschen... Weiß ich, irgendwie, die Kamera ist so träge im Vergleich zur Bewegung der Figur. So, hier ist Chefsbüro.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Verdammt, wo hatte der das gerade gesagt? Ist das? Ich habe mich so darauf konzentriert, mir die Nummer zu merken. Lieber erzählt. Ach, da.
Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never pop. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad, Stanley happened to input the correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Sicher? Was ist das eigentlich auch für eine Deckenhöhe hier? Meine Güte. Hallo? Oh, das ist beruhigend. So muss das sein.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would not go unanswered for long.
Oh. Kann ich eine Taschenlampe kriegen?
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Escape. Auf eine weirde Art finde ich das Escape verlockender. Oh Gott, das
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, and realized he simply had the end of this to live for, Stanley would meet his violent death.
Violent Death? Wie bitte? Da haben wir jetzt beide gleichzeitig also.
Still on board with death?
Jupp. Oh, das ist richtig. Richtig unangenehm.
The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Oh, das ist richtig gruselig. Was soll denn das? Bin ich tot? Ach du Scheiße. Was?
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever. Stanley can't see the bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. So he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
Sicher? Ich fühl mich nicht so, als wären mir alle Knochen gebrochen worden. Ich muss noch einmal ganz kurz. Ich habe das Gefühl, das ist immer noch sehr laut alles. So. Also gerade die Maschine war einfach sehr laut. Ich sehe überhaupt nichts. Es ist ja stockduster. Aber herzlich willkommen zu...
It would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Aber welche Stimme ist das denn jetzt, die da mit mir spricht? The Stanley Parable. Ui.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
What? Ändert sich das jedes Mal? Office Layout. This blueprint shows the office from the beginning of the game. The path from Stanley's office to the 2 doors was the first part of the game that was built. What? Okay, ja klar, kennt man. Da sind wir in unserem Büro, dann sind wir hier durch die Räume. Genau, da sind die beiden Türen, wo wir uns entscheiden. Okay, once this room was created, the rest of the game emerged as an extension of it. An exploration of the contradiction this room posed, okay. Filing Cabinets. Gott sei Dank sind die als Filing Cabinets beschriftet. The pacing of this opening section was important to get right. This corridor has been moved and altered to make sure the player reaches the 2 doors in a good time. Alles klar. Ist alles durchdacht. Stanleys Computer. Ah. Hey, das haben wir gar nicht gesehen. Das auch nicht. Das auch nicht. Obwohl doch, das hing, glaube ich, in irgendeinem der anderen Büros. Okay, krass. Türen. The Office. Mhm. Button Sounds. Ich weiß... Ich mag die 2. Ich weiß nicht, ob das... Ne, hier sind auch Credits. Ich weiß nicht, ob die mir gerade einfach tatsächlich was vom Spiel erklären. Oder ich das Spiel immer noch spiele. Oh, Solitär. Geiler Scheiß. Weiß halt, kann ich überhaupt nicht. Keine Ahnung, da wird irgendwas installiert. Machen wir schön alles aus. So, und hier sind die Credits. Ja, habt ihr gut gemacht. Was gibt's da? Das sind doch die Nummern aus dem Büro. Maintenance Room. Und was hat die Erzählerin dann eben gesagt, dass Stanley schon längst tot ist? Was mir ja auffällt ist, wenn man... Guckt mal unten am Bildschirmrand. Ich weiß nicht, seht ihr das auch? Nee, witzigerweise in der Aufnahme sehe ich das auch nicht so richtig. Bei mir hat der unten am Bildschirmrand, da ist noch irgendwas. Was ist denn hier los? Warzone? Spielen wir jetzt Call of Duty? The action game would become sentient and would wage war against the narrator. Was? Ich weiß nicht, ob die... Oh Gott, was ist denn hier alles? More endings, fewer endings, more narrators, fewer narrators, more Stanley, less Stanley. The point of the Stanley Parable HD remix is too loose. Also das ist jetzt hier dann wirklich... Dead strong bad. How do you type with boxing gloves on? Ja. Also... 427, okay, das sind unterschiedliche Designs für das Büro. Game Design Mockup, okay. Also ich habe wirklich das Gefühl... Oh, Exit. Dass wenn man sich an die... nicht an den Erzähler hält, dann kommt man einfach hier zum Museum der Entwicklung des Spiels. Boss Office. Screens from the development of the boss's office. Gut. Wir haben uns jetzt hier aber alles angeguckt, oder?
Where were all of his co-workers? Oh, I don't know. How about they're throwing a surprise party for him for all his button pushing? Does that sound plausible to you?
Wie gruselig, dass die Stimmen überall sind. Hä? Bin ich jetzt irgendwo an einem Ende angelangt? Oder spiele ich das Spiel noch? Das ist ein totaler Mindfuck. Okay, wisst ihr was? Wir gehen jetzt zu diesem Exit-Ding. War das eben auch schon da? So, hier gehen wir jetzt einfach rein.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
Was?
Can you see? Can you see how much they need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true choice. Whatever you do, choose it. Don't let time choose for you. Don't...
Ist es wirklich das, was die wollen? Okay, ich drücke auf Spiel neu starten. Heilige Mutter Gottes, wie abgespaced ist denn dieses Ding?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Okay. Und täglich grüßt das Murmeltier. So, wir durch den Flur und da kommen die beiden Türen.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Mhm. Ach, guck mal.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Ah, hier war das. Get Chris out of the broom closet. Naja, anscheinend ist Chris da nicht mehr drin. Ich guck trotzdem noch mal rein. Wow.
Oh no, not again. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time.
Der Erzähler ist super. Aber gut, wir wollen ihn nicht länger stressen.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Okay, komm, wir gucken einmal kurz nach unten. Wir können ja immer wieder hochgehen. Was liegt da? Achso, das sind einfach Kartons. Ah, ich kann nicht anders. Ich muss doch immer woanders lang.
Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream. Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So,
Hör doch auf zu
he
brabbeln!
himself flying and began to gently float above the ground.
Was?
Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Hab's befürchtet. Andererseits,
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black.
ich krieg richtig Gänsehaut.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Was zum Teufel? Also, meine erste Vermutung war jetzt natürlich, dass das Stanley da war auf dem Bürgersteig. Und wir uns das hier doch alles nur einbilden? Ich habe wirklich gar keine Ahnung. Null. Aber ich weiß, dass wir dieses Video jetzt beenden müssen. Und, ich bin völlig mindfuck. Das ist ja super abgespaced, dieses Game. Geil, habe ich richtig Bock, das weiter zu zocken. Aber wie gesagt, das machen wir in der nächsten Folge. Leute, bleibt bitte hier. Ja, wir sehen uns in der nächsten Folge, sonst drehe ich auch noch hier vorm Rechner durch. Also, macht's gut. Wir sehen uns das nächste Mal.